Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my overview of Spin Rhythm XD. So for those who want to cross it, I do overviews on this channel. I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. That's a Steam refund window. Steam says that you can make up your mind about if you want to keep a game or not in that time. I tend to agree. Broadly, as a rule, you're not going to change your mind 20 hours in from how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a quick punchy video, keep it around 10 minutes, give you the broad strokes info, and you can make up your mind on your own. This is a little bit out of season. I actually missed this on release. I checked my inbox and the dev did try to reach out to me. I always feel bad when that happens, but I get like 100 emails a day. So this came out early last year, but I saw that it's kind of on the top of one of the sale lists at the moment. So at the time of this recording, it's on deep sale for the weekend. So I thought, bugger it, I'll pick it up, I'll give it a go. I really enjoyed, Guitar Hero going back. And to be honest, I guess I was just in a mood. I've tried some rhythm games on PC with mouse and controller, and they're okay, but nothing really quite caught the fidelity of the kind of revolutionary impact that the guitar controller and all that sort of thing had back in the day. Granted, it's probably a bit played out and stale, and you wouldn't get me on a Guitar Hero control, but I still have fond memories of the cultural zeitgeist around it. Why am I buttering you up? Well, the main reason I grabbed this is because all over its marketing is that there's a free VR mode integrated, and I'm a fair weather VR fan. I've played a little bit of my Quest 2, it mostly just gathers dust. But yeah, the stars aligned. I thought, bugger it, I'll give it a go. And what's my take? This game is brilliant, especially from the perspective of having a VR headset. Now I understand that's a pretty steep entry point for a lot of people. Even myself, I've documented it quite a bit. I've had nightmares getting my headset to work, incompatibility issues. I had to upgrade my bloody phone for the app to work properly. So I'm not telling you to go out and buy VR just for this game. However, if you do have VR, or maybe you've got some fuck around money and you could just splash out, this is a pretty cool entry. I can't really comment on how it plays not VR, but the truth is, after my 2 hours, I just want to play more. I'm going to play more this weekend. I had an absolute fantastic time, and I'm not really interested in checking out the different controllers. So it kind of plays like an abstraction of DJing these songs. And funnily enough, it took me quite a bit for the penny to drop. And I wonder how many people would have the same problem, because I have forced embedded habits from my time with Guitar Hero. In fact, if you really wanted to pick at it, this bears more of a resemblance to DJ Hero, which, from what I understand, was much more niche. I bought it with the DJ board as well. It had its own special peripheral, and while this does do its own thing, it reminds me closer of that. And I always loved DJ Hero. The soundtrack to that was phenomenal. Anyway, I'm reminiscing a bit. So yeah, sort of doing a DJ set with this. It's got a bunch of music, and then you unlock little keys and you can unlock more of the catalog. I've unlocked a lot of the catalog already, 2 hours in. There's a lot of songs, a lot of earworms. And as an old boy that, I was around when Guitar Hero hit the scene, and all that music was aimed at and made for me, my generation plus previous ones. A lot of this music is very modern. Don't get me wrong, I love all music, but my tolerance for yet another wop 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 wop. That's how I describe it. That's how an old man describes how he hears modern clubs, beats. Some of it's a bit, but when you're in the moment, it doesn't matter. You'll notice that the footage is a bit all over the place because I can't stop bopping. I'm shaking my head, and generally speaking, this game wins at what I would say is most important with VR gaming and experience, would be like the rule of cool. I don't cover a lot of VR, but I do love it. Unfortunately, a lot of VR games have a problem of, oh, how cool would this game be in VR? So they just tack the VR mode on, and that's not how VR works. Not to turn it into a whole thing, but you don't actually want one-to-one fidelity in VR. You want it to control in such a way that you feel cool, you feel immersed uniquely to the VR platform where everything's a force multiplier, but the controls are their own. Chances are you're a fat slob gamer in real life, and having full one-to-one fidelity over the situation is only going to make you feel miserable when you realize that you probably couldn't roll around and win in a gunfight. It has to be kind of abstract and do its own thing. And that's what happens here. So I'll do my best to explain it. In fact, let's start from the bottom, because the first probably half hour to an hour, it hadn't clicked with me. You'll see on the screen there are different inputs. Specifically, they look a lot like the button presses from Guitar Hero. And so here I was trying to figure out which button to press, and it wasn't really working. Was it the triggers? Was it the face buttons? I wasn't getting the feedback that I was expecting. So I'm basically trying to steer this wheel onto the points and then hit the buttons. What I realized at arguably too long a bit of time, but I gotta admit my faults, is that you don't actually press any buttons at all. All you have to do is line the wheel up with those pips. And what those pips actually are visual indications of the beat that you're following. The way you process that visual input into your brain has to kind of change. And if you're anything like me, you've probably got 100 hours of Guitar Hero imprinting on. So that was kind of tricky to get past that hurdle. And on paper, and maybe even through secondhand footage, you might not see the thrill, but it's there. And the whole idea, I suppose, is that you're kind of rotating the DJ boards preemptively for the pip to hit. And what it ends up doing is you're in this sort of overhanded, almost gangland style of holding your controller like it's a gun above your waist and then dipping down to move the board. You'll also notice that some of the pips are kind of highlighted. They're kind of rectangle and stand out. Now, those ones are where you have to slap the board. You actually have to impact with it. Like you have to touch it, I suppose, but you get into it. And then you start to realize when the rule of cool really kicks in that some of this stuff, especially on the earlier difficulties, because I'm still figuring it out, I'm on normal, I've pushed into hard a bit. Some of this stuff you could probably get away with doing with one hand, but that's not at all where the fun is. The fun is ultimately kind of alternating between hands. So whenever there is a slap indicator on the screen, you kind of want to switch hands and then move the wheel. So you're doing this weird, God, I must look like an absolute asshole in my apartment, this weird abstraction of being a DJ where you're kind of just poking and dipping your hands down alternately to move this little wheel. On top of that, there's ones where you sort of have to hold and it's almost like a whammy bar. When you got the difficulties, you might see like a green bar through the screen. That's where you have to kind of slap almost like it was a drum kit, but off the wheel, out of bounds kind of thing. My point is, even though it seems like these VR controls were an aftermarket added version, like I don't believe they were part of the initial release, I cannot possibly fathom not playing with these controls. I have seen that you can potentially put a MIDI DJ board in there, so maybe that'd be really good. But just a lot of these catchy earworms, the main menu song is just absolutely fantastic. I can't get enough of it, can't get it out of my head. And it's immersive VR done right. I think the technology is not really there for high fidelity, lose yourself in a one-to-one simulation, right? And yet a lot of people seem to think that's what VR should be and judge it as that. This is highly stylized, but I'm not getting motion sick or anything like that. And you don't really notice that you're in this floating abyss of sound and color. You just are. And arguably, that's the magic. It's like an ambient soundtrack. You kind of don't realize that it's working. Anyway, it's fantastic fun. I'm not 100% sure the footage will do it justice, and I've tried with my words as someone that doesn't really do a lot of VR stuff. Bit of an out of season, unusual video, but that's how I spent my evening last night. And I've woken up this morning, recorded this, and I can't wait to play more. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.